Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, as always, we've got a real treat. Mr. Mike Mathweg is in the house. If you're not familiar, Mike is entrepreneur, speaker, and coach, 40 under 40, investor, and fellow Wisconsinite. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, bud.
Excited to be here. So, Mike, you got a pretty interesting story from where you started and where you are now. Quite the journey. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now.
I've been fired a couple times, which helped me get to where I'm at today. But it was a lot of, I actually wrote a newsletter about this week, was about relentless determination. Every single step of the way, I had decisions to make when my back was up against the wall, figure out exactly, hey, which route am I going to go? And I told my clients that you have two options. You can blame other people, or you can take accountability and move forward. And a lot of people do the first one. But no, I think definitely, it's going to sound funny, but I think getting fired the first time really kind of propelled me back into the entrepreneur lifestyle and business.
So your career, you've been mostly in insurance, correct? Tell us a little bit about that background.
Yeah, so I started at Northwestern Mutual, where in college, where I got a taste of insurance. However, I was a part of the 92% that failed within the first 12 months because I really didn't have a game plan. Got into banking, did banking for about 2.5 years, got fired from the auto loan finance job I had, got back into insurance, and then I exited the insurance business in 2022. And now I have a consulting company where I help people structure, scale, and actually sell their company when they're ready.
So, Mike, we knew each other before this, so I happen to know a little bit more about your story than you've alluded to. And I think you skipped over maybe the most interesting part, which is the exit. I think, so many successful entrepreneurs that I know, when they talk about their success, they tend to gloss over, meaning not wanting to highlight themselves or talk about their biggest victories. But you happen to have a pretty large exit. Talk about your time in insurance and how you were able to build up that success to get your business to exit.
Okay, great question. So when I started in insurance, I actually sacrificed. I was living in Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm from Wisconsin, so as you, but I now live in Madison. But there was 4 months where I was driving from Des Moines, Iowa to Beloit, Wisconsin, just to run appointments Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and drive back. 4.5 hours one way to just write apps to turn around and head back. So this is before technology really became where it's at now. Like they barely came out with online enrollments back in 2018. Like you had to do things paper. Like you couldn't do like a DocuSign. That just shows how far technology has came in six years. So we did that. I told 2 cars within 2 weeks of each other. And after that, we said, hey, we're moving back to Wisconsin. Wife actually for 4 months helped me out in the business. And then she got a job, but I just quickly grew my personal book of business up to about 750 clients. And then I actually acquired an agency with my mentor who became my business partner. And then I ended up buying equity in his company, and then we sold it all together. It's really about how it all happened. And it happened from... Wrote my first app in October 2017, and we wrapped everything up in 22.
Now, how common is this for those who maybe aren't part of the insurance or Medicare industry? How easy is it for one to build a book of business in that period of time, roughly 5 years?
It's not common. It's common to build a book of business. It's not common to exit as quickly as I did. Like my mentor, for an example, he was doing this for 25 years. There's some
Wow.
people, like I'm actually helping a client right now, her entire exit. But 80% of her growth is going to be in acquisitions. Like we're closing on her third book of business at the end of this month. Where
Wow.
like that's her model. Like she's now bought 3 books. And I think she's been in the business for 3 or 4 years. Acquisitions is the quickest way to grow, but it is very, very risky.
I believe it. So there's a lot of folks who listen to the show who are entrepreneurs or, looking to get into new ventures. And something that comes up in a lot of conversations with the folks that I talk to is insurance. Like, you should get into insurance. Insurance people print money. Well, there's a lot of different types of insurance, but how lucrative do you think this industry is? Obviously, there's a lot of regulations and a lot of changes that have happened and continue to happen year over year.
Print money. The insurance business can print money as long as you want it to. If you're willing to put in the work. The thing is, I tell everybody about insurance is that it's such a low entry point, like dollar wise. Like you can write an application for less than $1,000 because you got to get your license, you get E&O insurance, which is like your business insurance, and you get a contract. That's about it. Like you don't have to go buy a building. You don't have to have high-tech systems. You need a computer and a phone. And most people start with just their basic high school computer, iPad, their cell phone. Like you can just go. Like that's one thing where a lot of entrepreneurs are like, okay, I need an office. I need staff. I need this. Like, you know what? No. Like when my business partner and I, we had no office. He traveled a lot. I traveled a lot. We had a place downtown Milwaukee that collected our mail. All of our agents worked remotely. It's like the margins are just, you got extremely high margins because you have very low overhead. The thing though is with insurance, I was fortunate. I did it all in the Medicare space. However, though, it is very highly regulated. So you do have to take tests in order to sell the products, like life insurance. Perfect example. You go get your license, you take the one test, the AML, and then you're done. You can get contract, you can sell a policy tomorrow, you get paid. One area that new agents especially struggle in is they take the advances. So if you write a policy and your commission's $1,000, rather than taking it over time, which is called as earned, they take the $1,000 up front. And then what happens when somebody cancels a policy, you get a charge back and you got to pay that money back, which people don't like doing, as you can imagine. So it is entry. Like I want to look up the statistic and we can drop it in the notes, but the average, how many millionaires are made out of the insurance business? I want to know that statistic.
I do too.
Bet you it's high.
I bet it is. So with your time in insurance, and whether this be working in insurance or exiting the business, what would you say is one of your biggest lessons learned?
Lessons learned. I would say not asking for help, because you always think you can do it yourself. You always think that it's your way or the highway. Like, I wish I would have raised my hand more and like, I had a great mentor. I wish I would have had more mentors when I was growing, because the thing is, like, what I think about and things that go through as an entrepreneur, you're the exact same way. We have a million thoughts before 8 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
99.8% of them suck. It's just, I wish I would have had more mentors and would have asked more questions, would have asked, like, perfect example. Your accountant. Do you ask your accountant a lot of questions?
Only when I need the help. But no, not usually.
But the thing is, like, okay, hey, like I met with mine last week. First time in my life, he said, "You're gonna like this meeting." And I told him, I was like, I've never had an accountant told me I'm gonna like a meeting when we're talking about taxes. But those are the things, like, you gotta be able to ask for help, raise your hand. There's people out there that want to help you, that want you to succeed. And if you're getting shut down by people, they're not for you. You're not going to please everybody, so don't try to.
Isn't that the truth? You know, it's interesting you say that, asking for help and raising your hand. That is probably one of the things I could say to that very same answer. But I've found that the older I get, the more I realize I don't know, but the more I'm hungrier to learn. And because of that, I think as a byproduct, I'm more willing to ask questions and ask for help, or say, clarification, right? Just to better make sure that I better understand something. And I'd be curious with most people if that's something that just naturally comes with age, because it seems like it does.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, just the person that's sitting in this chair, than the person that was sitting in this chair 2 years ago, night and day. Like, you just evolve over time into the person that you want to be, rather than just being the person you are, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Because the one thing that I look at, and I tell all my clients, and I think I did a live about this, it's like, what is life all about? Like, is it just about being selfish? Like, some people it is. Like, they want to be selfish. They want to be greedy. Or do you want to provide value, have an abundance mindset? And that's where it's like, looking back on it, yes, was what I accomplished in the first 5 years of the insurance business. It's a completely different. If anyone knows how to turn those things off on this app, on this MacBook, please.
Yeah, I don't know
send me.
Why.
I was in a big meeting on 3 hours ago, and it sent a thumb to everybody. Sorry, I get distracted easily sometimes. But the thing is, like, I will always talk, coming back to, like, if you said, but comes with age, but, like, when I was younger, I was like, I'm invincible. I can do this all by myself. Like, was it greedy? Not kind of, a little bit. But now it's like, I'm going to have a much bigger exit in the future than I did right now. And when I do have that bigger exit, I'm going to impact every person on my team's life, because there's enough abundance for everybody. Like, it's not just about money. It's about values. It's about empowering my team to make decisions so I don't have to. Not that I don't have to, but, like, they don't need my approval.
Right.
Like, one thing I do is, like, I give everybody on my team, I took it from Dan Martell, to be honest. It's called the $50 rule. If you can if you have a problem and you can spend $50 to fix it, you just pay the $50 and get your job done. I'm not saying pay someone else $50, but, like, if you need a software to do your job and it's less than $50, pay it. You have one job. One rule to this is you have to tell me the next time we have a meeting, because I don't want them to sit there, try to get on my calendar, try to talk to me when I'm busy for 3 hours, and then I paid them for 3 hours to do nothing. Like, that doesn't make sense.
That's a good point. Everything you just said there, I agree with 100%. But one of the things I've come to the conclusion, at least for me in my life, is that it's okay to be selfish, but for a purpose. And when I say that is, I went through a large health scare many years ago. Probably got into this story more than enough on this podcast, but I realized that I had to be selfish to take care of myself. And if I took care of myself, I could fill my cup. And if I was able to fill my cup, then I could fill the cup of others. I could do the thing that I enjoy doing most, which is adding value, teaching, empower, inspiring people. And I don't think if you take the time for yourself, and whatever that might be, for guys like you and me, Mike, that's playing golf. I also enjoy working out, taking my dogs for a walk, doing stuff with my kids, right? If I can do those things that bring me joy, I then have the mental clarity and energy to be able to do all those other things that I want to do in my life, those
Hmm.
bucket list things and those career landmarks and such. And so I think selfishness is good, but obviously not to the point to where you're neglecting the most important things in your life.
Yeah. And it's, who do you need to become to be the best version of yourself, to be the best version for others? Like I'm selfish when it comes around my calendar. Like I operate on it's called the perfect calendar. It's a model I teach all my clients. I'm selfish when it comes to my calendar because my calendar, I decide what's on it. This one fell through the cracks. We were supposed to do this an hour ago, but it was not on my calendar, so I didn't know I had it. But the thing is, like, every day, Monday, Tuesdays are for my current clients. Wednesdays for personal development. Thursdays are for content. Fridays are for golf. And I know when I have it on my calendar, I do not have to feel guilty about not doing something. Like when I'm golfing on Fridays, I know I can golf and be fully present. I don't have to feel guilty. Should I be working? Did I send that email? Did I do that? Like if you actually plan your day and do time management correctly rather than live in your inbox, as most entrepreneurs, they go to work and be like, okay, what fire am I going to put out today? That's no way to run a business because you're going to put out fires from 8 to 5 and then you're going to go home, spend an hour with your family and then go 7 to 10. You're going to be working on things that actually need to get done. Where if you use time blocking, no extra time, and actually plan your day and be selfish around your time, you only have so much time. I don't know if you know it or not, but there's 24 hours in a day. It's not changing.
The one thing that you say a lot, you mentioned being selfish with your time. I call it protecting your time because if you allow it, there's going to be a lot of people who will try to take your time and they'll try to use your time for things that are not productive or valuable for your business or your personal life. And that could be obviously your family, your friends, any other thing that's important to you. And as I zoom out on some of the things that I've learned in my entrepreneurial career, is that time management, or just the word management in general, if you cannot control your time and your calendar, boy, I don't know that you're ever going to be able to scale and grow a business that is sustainable. And it should be fun to do that if you have control of your business. But if you don't control your time, I don't know what you can control in your life or your business. Now, as someone who's exited and someone who is probably one of the more organized people I know, speak to that and what you see, because now you are a consultant. You do a lot of consulting with businesses. Do you feel like that is maybe one of the more important things for young leaders or any leaders looking to scale their business?
That's the one issue that my clients have. I don't want to say one issue. It's a common issue that my clients struggle with is, and I was just writing down some notes so I can remember, is that like one part about time is delegation. They struggle with the delegation part because they think they need to do everything themselves. Which one, if you can be rude here, put your ego on the bench and delegate, and not everything needs to be done by you. Because when you delegate a task, you have more time, which goes back to your calendar and you can do what you want. Like the one thing that drives me nuts about people, and this happened to somebody I talked with 30 minutes ago, They said, they answered the phone and say, hey, I have 2 minutes. I want to say, why the F are you answering the phone? Like, answer the phone if you have time to talk. Don't just answer the phone. Don't put things on your calendar just to do it. Put things on your calendar that provide value to your life, value to your business, or where you can provide value to somebody's life, somebody's business. Like one thing I used to just do, and I was bad. I'll be honest with you, I was bad like this. I would just put a 10 o'clock client call and a 12 o'clock client call. And that hour, I always wasted it doing something. I work from home. It'd be like, oh, okay, I can go do laundry. I can go do dishes. I could go eat, go play with the kids. But like I implemented something called net time, no extra time, where now I have no white space on my calendar ever. Everything's called for. But then I also back it up. So now I'd rather go 10 o'clock client call, 11 o'clock client call, 12 o'clock, whatever. And now leave that white and fill that in. It's kind of like time chunking, time blocking. Everyone has different terminology for it. Like it's just little things like that would allow you to buy back your time.
That's a good book too, by the way.
It's a massive good book. It's actually, Dan's one of my mentors. So a lot, like one of the things, sometimes you hear me say stuff, it's because Dan taught it to me. And my other mentor is best friends with Dan. So I am getting a lot of Dan lingo. But you have to understand as an entrepreneur is that how can I create a massive amount of value for a little amount of time? Because when you can create more value to people, you're worth more. And when you can do it with less time, you can impact more lives.
Yeah, that's deep. That's good. I often tell people for the starting point, because I was never a master of my calendar. For many, many years, I let my calendar run my life rather than I running my calendar. At least that's the way I would refer to it. And when I started to get a hold of it, I did things like setting reminders so that, if I didn't look at my phone, I wouldn't miss something. But then I also realized that if it's not on my calendar, it's not important. And if it's a priority, or if it is important to me achieving my goal or getting that next big deal, it's got to be on my calendar or in my planner. And if it wasn't, I can't make up any excuses, but just saying like I allowed that to happen, right? Or didn't allow that to not happen. And so I think starting with getting a hold of your calendar is really important. But you mentioned now a few times the perfect calendar, and I had the opportunity to sit in one of your presentations not too long ago, this year actually, and got to hear you deliver like a half-hour talk about it. And for the listeners out there, if you haven't already, if you're big on this or not, I would love to hear you talk a little bit about what the perfect calendar is and how someone can get started with it.
Yes, I will talk about it. The one thing I want to say, what you mentioned that if you put on your calendar, you're responsible for it. If it's not on the calendar, you're not responsible for it. Two things there, like my calendar starts at 4 a.m. ends at 9 p.m. every day. I put in when I wake up, when I go work out, when I get ready, when I do personal development, when I hang out with my kids. Everything's on my calendar. What I challenge everybody to do is, it's called a time and energy audit. For the next 14 days, write down what you do in 15-minute increments. And highlight it green if it gives you energy. Highlight it red if it takes energy. And if you DM me time and energy audit, I'll just send you the spreadsheet so you have it all there. But it's going to allow you to figure, okay, where am I wasting time in my day? Am I doing tasks that are low tasks, like $ tasks? Like checking my email. I don't need to check my email. I don't.
No.
That's my executive persistent, Prince, who is amazing. he checks my email. It's how I'm able to spend less than 30 minutes a day in my emails, because he filters them. He lets me know what I need to worry about, what I don't need to worry about. And if it's an email, now people are like, how do I know if you're emailing me? Like, I will put MM on the end of every email if I'm actually emailing you. If it's not there, it's not me. And Prince tells you that, hey, this is Prince, Mike's executive assistant. But the perfect calendar allows you to really plan out your perfect day. It all starts with one day. What does your perfect day look like? Give you a quick synopsis of mine. Up at 4 a.m., working out 4:30 to 5:30, getting ready at 6 to 7, personal development, read. 7 to 9, family time. 9 to 4:30, I work. 4:30, 5:30, family time. 5:30, dinner. Hang out with the kids. Kids go to bed at 8:30. And I'm sleeping by 9:30. My life is pretty boring. I'm up at 4 and I'm sleeping by 9:30. But now once you plan out your perfect day, you plan out your perfect week. Because I told you earlier on this podcast, my Mondays and Tuesdays are different than my Thursdays and Fridays. So like, you plan out your week then. And then after you plan out your week, you plan out your month. Like, I was in the Medicare business. October, November is completely different than January. Completely different than May. So you plan out your month. And this isn't just business. I'm not just saying only do this for your business. Do this for your life. Like, do you want to go on a vacation during spring break? Plan for it. Like, I'm already planning for 2025. Like, I'm going to Tony Robbins' event in August in Florida. Like, by Thanksgiving, my 2025 is going to be done. Because I'm already planning. And then I plan what I want in my months and my year, and then I have the power to say no. We all feel guilty saying no. I say no more than I say yes. Because when I say yes to you, I'm saying no to somebody else. And do I want to? Just being honest. Like, do I, like this podcast, I wanted to be on it, so I said yes to it. And I know that me being on this, I had to say no to something else if it came up. But 90% of you that are probably listening to this have issues saying no. And I'm not saying no to your kids. Like, come on, everyone says no to their kids. But like, work-wise, like, people ask me, Mike, can I meet you on Friday? No. It is a hard
Unless
no.
it's golfing.
And I say, yeah, if you want to come golfing, like I took Chris golfing earlier this year. Like, anybody can come golfing and live in Madison. I play at TPC, Wisconsin. Invites open to anybody. Like, we go golf. Fridays, you want to meet with me? You got me for 4.5 hours, maybe 5, pretty uninterrupted.
Depends on how many rain delays we get, Mike.
Well, we did get rain delays, so that was a bad day. But it was a great day too. Like, we had a blast.
Yeah.
But like, you plan out your day, then you go to your week, then you go to your month, and then you go to your year. And then at the end of the exercise, you do the math. And what I mean by that is you just planned out what your perfect year looks like. How many vacations? Everything. Vacations. Did you want to buy a new car every May? Whatever. Like, it's your perfect year. And now you just do the math. You figure out how much does it cost to live out your perfect calendar. Household expenses, food expenses, everything. You price it all out. I always was under the impression that I needed $10 million and I could retire and I could do whatever I want with the rest of my life. After I did the perfect calendar exercise and I did the math, numbers way less. Because if I can live out this perfect calendar every single day, and I don't know the exact number. Let's just use $200,000 a year. I need to bring in $200,000 a year to live out my perfect calendar. Now you do the math. Go to your financial advisor. Hey, what do we need to do so I get $200K a year? And they're going to like, you need to have $6 million. Okay, right there. Once you have $6 million, you're never going to run out of money to live your perfect life. And now I ask you is, what are you working for? What are you working towards? Do you know?
That's the biggest problem.
Are you working to work? And that's nothing wrong with that. Like my grandpa worked at a gas station until like a year ago because that's what he liked to do. But now you have the power to, my mentor calls it the escape velocity. And that's when you have enough in investments to live out your perfect calendar and you can do whatever you want when you want. You go to work one day, your boss pisses you off, say, hey, I'm done. Because you know your investments are going to cover your perfect life, your perfect calendar.
So if someone's listening to this and they hear you and they're like, this really resonates with me, but planning out the perfect year sounds really overwhelming, like almost too much of a jump for me from where I'm at now. Is the next first step saying, well, let's just plan out the perfect week. Let's get used to planning out the perfect week and the perfect month. And eventually, once you start to follow these habits and behaviors, you're going to get to the point where you're going to want to plan out the perfect year. Is that fair?
I say start with a day. Start with one day. If you can't commit to one day, start there. Then when you get there, then go to a week. Take it in chunks. But I keep going back to like, what do you want your life to be? What is life all about? What is life all about to you?
Well, that's the ultimate question. We do something at Hustle Leaders where we've got something called the 2020 Vision Guide. And one of the reasons why we have it and why it's a really good starting point to get into our ecosystem is because I've talked to business owners, thousands and thousands of business owners in my life. And one of the questions I like to ask them is just to kind of get things started, to understand where they're at personally, professionally, and where their business is at. What's your vision? And it's a very broad, very open-ended question. And people are like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, what do you want? And I said, what do you mean? Well, what do you want to achieve this year? And I've literally had people who make $1 million look at me like this. They'll stare at me and then they'll do this. They'll look at the ceiling, they'll look over the walls, they'll stare at the carpet, and they'll just start randomly blurting things out that may or may not have any rhyme or reason. And then I'll call them out typically and say, did you just make that up? And they're like, well, no. But I said, well, if you can't articulate in 30 to 60 seconds or less what it is you're after this year, you don't have a vision. And if you don't have a vision, how can you really plan out the perfect week or the perfect day even? How do you know what your goals are? And I'd argue you probably don't. So when you're talking to businesses, what do you see? Do you see vision being an issue?
I won't say vision. I want to say clarity. Because my question to all my clients, really before we even get started, I'm like, what's your exit? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you want? Like, if somebody comes here with a blank check, what do you want for your business? They're like, $10 million. Okay, sweet. Do you know what it takes to get $10 million? No. Perfect. That's why you hired me, because I'm going to help you get there. I want to say, like, there's some people that just, my clients are like, here's my vision. How do I get there? Kind of like the roadmap, like, okay, get in your car, Chris. You're like, okay, where am I going? Rather than be like, okay, Chris wants to have Ed Milet on this podcast. Okay, now you have a roadmap. Now you know where you're going. And now you gotta know, okay, what steps do I need to keep going to get closer to that goal? I like a goal, vision, really it's to me all about the same, and it's just milestones along the way. So like that's a lot of people, they have it, but they lack the clarity to fine tune it. Because you can tell me like, hey, like same thing with you, Chris. Like people might have a vision, but they have no idea how to get there. Like my visions are so clear because I've played them through my head in 4D, in other people's shoes, in
10K.
everything. Like I have a vision that I'll just share it. I'm gonna buy a McLaren GT, and I have two goals that I need to hit in order for me to buy it, because it's not a cheap car, and it's the only McLaren that fits 2 sets of golf clubs. It's the only reason I'm buying it.
And what is the time frame on this goal?
It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in 6 months. It's tied to 2 goals. One's tied to my weight, where I'm 7 pounds away from it. The other is tied to income and how much my trailing 12 months. So it could happen any point in time. But I've played this in my head that, okay, I'm going to wait. I woke up, I get in my car, I drive to Chicago to the McLaren dealership, walk in. Hi, I want to test drive this all black McLaren GT. They gave me the keys, I sit into it, and then I go back. Play it all over again in my head. I'm waking up. I am driving to Chicago. I am asking for the keys, and I'm smelling. What does the car smell like? What does the dealership smell like? Then I go back and I play it again. But this time, I play it from the car salesman point of view. Mike just walked through the door. Mike's walking to me. Oh, I'm going to make a sale. Mike asks for the keys. And I do this over and over again from other people's point of views. Like, how do I, like, now I do it for my wife. She gets up, she gets ready. We get in the car, we drive to Chicago. Like, I play, like, all of my visions, I've played it in my head about 1,000 times in different point of views, different smells, different feelings. And that's just, to me, getting in a car. Imagine how I thought this through when I start the car, when I rev the engine, when I touch the steering wheel. Like, that's how clear all of my goals are.
Yeah, at that point, it'll be an affirmation, which is what a lot of car commercials will do to you. How important do you think that is, that people do that? And I've seen the movie and read the book The Secret, where there's some similarities there. How important is that in the whole process of getting to the achievement where this becomes tangible in real life? And not just for you, for people who are really trying to make that move in life.
What's the question again?
To role play that through your head, to kind of almost bring it to life in a way where you're recreating that movie in your head of what's going to happen when you get that goal.
You just have to you have to dream. You have to give yourself the permission to dream, where most people don't. And I look at it, and I want all my clients to look at it the same way. It's like, who do I need to become to be okay with doing that? Like, I ask myself, who do I need to become to buy a McLaren? Who do I need to become to be the best version of Mike? Who does Chris need to become to be the best version of Chris? It's all really the same. It's just, you got to ask yourself, who do I need to become? And then it's your decision if you want to become that person or not.
Yeah, that's a great question to ask yourself. And I do think you need to visualize it. You need to see yourself doing it. Because if you keep telling yourself like, it's a goal, but it'll never happen, I really believe that kind of self-talk and that disbelief will become reality, and it won't happen. That McLaren will never become your reality. Because I've seen this. I've written about this in my book, my first book. But speaking of dreaming, We had a gentleman on the show earlier, I guess probably last year now, fellow Wisconsinite, Jamar Jones, and he said toward the end of the show that he was talking to a teacher, and he said, the one thing missing with this upcoming generation of kids, so there's just not enough dreamers. Kids are, maybe so caught up in technology, which probably could take us down a totally different rabbit hole. But, back in our time, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have iPads. We barely had video games. And kids would do a lot of daydreaming, which back then was not seen as, being healthy. But you could argue that time we spent dreaming was dreaming out all the cool things we wanted in life and how we'd be able to get to those things. So I think that's really important.
You have to allow yourself to get in that mindset. That's obtainable. Anything's obtainable as long as you're willing to put in the work. Like me, like I was 265 pounds 10 months ago. And I was over it. I put in the work and now I'm down to 220. It doesn't happen overnight. Consistency, dedication, determination, relentless. Kind of why I named their consulting company Relentless Consulting. It's like you have to choose. You choose your hard or you choose your easy.
Yeah. Mike, that's a good point to wrap things up. Before I let you go, tell everyone where they can find you, and more importantly, give us a quick highlight on Relentless Consulting and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, you can find me pretty simple. Mike Mathweg on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the socials. I think my marketing company even created me a TikTok. Don't know anything about it, but it's there. Relentless Consulting, I help entrepreneurs structure, scale, and sell their business when they're ready on their terms. Those are the 3 S's that we are helping entrepreneurs do. Niched in the insurance business, but the concepts work for everybody.
I love it.
I appreciate you having me on, Chris.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Pleasure to have you. Great conversation. We haven't really gone down this path a lot with guests where we talk about calendar and your perfect life, your perfect year. It's a topic that I think everyone can benefit from, and everyone needs to hear at some point. You mentioned a lot of things about what you do. One of the things I've done for the last probably decade or so is you get close to the end of the year, which we're coming up on, believe it or not. I always do a self-audit, kind of look at, my calendar. I look at how I've managed my time. I've looked at some of my successes and my pitfalls and some of my new or old behaviors and what needs to be changed. And, with that, I'm usually looking at time management. And I think that even some of the more successful people I know could benefit from trying to adopt the perfect calendar. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. To all the listeners, thanks for tuning into another episode. We appreciate the ears. Till next time. Peace.